screen. That happened before. So, hello, everybody. Welcome once again to the Lessons Learned podcast with our friend Chapelmon here. We have we have a lot of news about one particular subject. So we're gonna try to, set up that aside for a little bit because you probably heard all those news, but we're gonna cover it anyway. If you don't, wondering what it is, of course, about Fallout 76, the fallout out of Fallout 76, as it were. Yes, the jokes write themselves. Anyway, we are going to be talking about it, but first, we're going to talk about other companies who also done a bit of screwing up. And it's because, when one company screws up, everybody else follows. Let's start with Sony, of all places. Sony apparently decided that they were going to release a mini PS1, PSX.
Yeah, they're, doing the Me Too thing with like, oh, hey, look, we also got a mini console, retro console thing.
But they decided to make it on the cheap. We already talked about 2 weeks ago that they were using an emulator. Was already on the market, an open source emulator.
An open source emulator instead of making something in-house, which again, it would be odd because they already have had like plenty of in-house emulators.
But now, on top of that, they also decided that they were going to. Interesting. They were going to also use the PAL version of several games. Now, for those people who don't know, because this hasn't been a thing for about 10 years now since everybody went.
I think so.
About HD and fully digital. The situation with PAL was that you had different regions across the planet. We had different standards. One of those was PAL, mostly for Britain, Europe, NTSC for North America and the Americas in general, and I think Japan also had its own format. And of course, consoles being made for television would have to adjust to the format on the television. It even happened in computers as well, because monitors were built at similar standards. But when everybody went fully digital, went from analog displays to digital displays, that more or less ended. However, it seems that our friends at Sony decided that we're gonna save some money by just taking the ROMs from the PAL region and just splattering them over on
their worldwide release versions of these consoles, which I don't understand because so the main thing with PAL is they run slower. They have like
about 10 megahertz slower.
Yeah, so they have like 10 less frames per second.
Yeah, and some games is not noticeable. But in fighting games and driving games, which were very popular in the era, especially for the Sony PlayStation, you're gonna notice them. You're gonna notice. So it's like, and also because of the slower framework, also the graphics don't update as quickly as well. So especially if you're seeing that on your digital flat screen, it's like, ooh. I mean, it's already. I mean, that's the thing about the Sony PlayStation is that it's already sort of first generation 3D graphics. So a lot of them are going to look very bulky and jagged. And on top of that, you're getting the PAL version. So yeah, that's a series of decisions right there that I'm like, what in the heck are you guys doing? Because that number doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Other than they're just cutting cost. Basically, that's a one thing that. That I think, oh, okay, this is why they're doing it. But aside from that, I don't, there's no other reason, because they don't really want to spend the time or the effort to, to make sure that they have the best version available.
And I don't get it either. It's like, why the PAL versions, like they really don't have like just a disc or something of North American release of a disc of whatever game you want to put and just rip it and put it on there. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I mean, really, it's just, I don't get it.
Yeah, it seems that that's an issue right there. But it's just weird. I guess that's what they had. They had that, and that's what they went with.
And it's like, like sure. We could, but why bother?
Yeah, so there you go. Talking about stuff that was just available. I saw a bit of news. The FTC is joining the investigation on microtransactions, particularly loot boxes. I think we talked about this in fact, it was kind of a breaking news last week after the UK Gambling Commission basically said in all intents and purposes that that microtransactions in the form of loot crates or loot boxes were serving as sort of a gateway drug for children and young adults to get into gambling, and that saw a spike in gambling and underage gambling in the UK.
Yeah, but now the American Federal Trade Commission is
getting involved.
And
while the current FTC is very much pro-industry, and we have had the standard reply from the industry saying, well, it's not gambling because you can't sell things for real money, and put a pin on that little argument because it's going to come back in a moment. The FCC is investigating, and while any one investigation is not necessarily conclusive, it again shows a part of a trend that the politicians are getting concerned. And when it comes to politicians and easy votes about stuff, particularly comes to children, that's an easy way of getting votes and see that you're actually doing something about the state of the world. Like, say, putting a ban on microtransactions in video games. And as we discussed this many a time, the whole business model that the video game industry is running on, especially the AAA industry, it's pretty fragile. And one of those fragile points is the dependence on and the justification of microtransactions, which are making them billions of dollars. And this comes at a time where big games are not selling as much as expected, such as Call of Duty, Battlefield 5, Fallout 76, games that are getting more and more into the mode, especially Fallout 76, and mode of MMO Lite / games as service, Destiny 2. So, and remember that Activision said essentially, we're going to double down on basically getting more money out of the people already there.
Yeah.
And re-engaging, right?
Yeah. Which is kind of like that. No, that's the opposite of what they want, what fans want.
And in order to re-engage in many things, you have to make the microtransactions that much more, not palatable, but attractive. And the best way to do that, and to guarantee you get more money, is to use a sort of, and by the way, Destiny in many ways runs on stuff like Skinner boxes, right? And stuff like that. Those are already psychological tricks that get you engaged. If you do more of that, then in many ways you're kind of saying, yes, it might not be the legal definition of gambling, but we're using all the tricks in the gambler's den to keep you gambling on stuff that has no value outside of the game, but it's making us billions of dollars. So, yeah. Interesting. And let's look at another piece of news, because you brought this. So talk about EA, and not EA but Blizzard. Pyongyang, he talks about Blizzard devs worry about Activision influence and questions Diablo's decisions. Could you give us a rundown of what was that? What that is all about?
I'd have to recall what that was, because that was kind of like earlier last week that we did that, and I have to pull that video up. So I want to say that was the story that his best friend Jason Schreier published on Kotaku about him talking to anonymous sources within Blizzard, the current active developers and past developers, and talking about their concerns that Activision is maybe a little has their hand way too much, is starting to kind of infiltrate the culture of Blizzard, and they've pretty much lost their way. They're not the same Blizzard as they were now. They're more focused on money, and that a lot of the things is like now a lot of Blizzard or Activision started to kind of influence Blizzard in terms of their finances. One of the things they brought up was that, you know, before they would just make a game but now it's like, oh, we have to cut costs and try to, you know, worry about our finances and stuff, when that wasn't the main priority before. And
yeah, more to the point.
that's
So go ahead,
yeah. And that's something you've brought up for years. Like, it's only a matter of time before Activision starts kind of like, you know, borrowing money or pretty much taking money from the Bank of Blizzard. And it seems like that's actually already been happening.
More to the point, Blizzard's former CEO left about 6 months ago. And he was very much of the culture of, and he was described in Youngya's video as somebody who was very hands off, right? Who understood the business, who understood how to make games, and supported the staff. There's another CEO, but the person that came in as a CFO came from the Activision side. In other words, she was installed on Blizzard to run the finances. As a CFO is a chief financial officer. They're the people who essentially write the checks. And I said many times before, the golden rule: whoever has the goal makes the rules. And in corporation, whoever writes the checks gives the orders.
Yep.
And according to Youngya's reporting through, from this article, this is from non-sourced reporting. In other words, people are anonymous. But essentially, they're saying that she has been put in to start cutting cost, control the price, and that also ties in with the apparently comes from Activision, or maybe Blizzard too, but usually Activision wanted to basically turn every single property that Activision that Blizzard has into a mobile property. Or at least either have a mobile derivative or become mobile. So we talk about the new Diablo, although Diablo 4 supposedly is on the works, but further development on Diablo 3 apparently has been stopped.
Yeah, because that's the thing. That's another thing they brought up. It's like apparently it didn't matter that they've been turning the Diablo 3 around and making it into a game that it's profitable. Essentially, Activision's like, you guys are done with that game, so cancel all your DLCs and start working on Diablo 4. And I believe that the push for the Diablo Immortal mobile game, and this is what I thought first. I'm like, well, this is clearly aimed towards like a Chinese market. Why not just release it in China? And then if people are asking for it, then release it in worldwide. But no, they apparently that was the original plan. It's just to release it in China, and then it's like, nope. Activision told them to release it worldwide, and well,
it backfired.
It's history.
Yeah. And I think it's and this will go to the news of Activision doubling down on microtransactions and making mobile games, because mobile games are seen, and we talk about Diablo Immortal, how basically it was a reskinning of essentially a copy of Diablo in another mobile format, is that they're seen as cheap and thus lowering the cost of making games, or that infamous cost of making games, plus raising a lot of profit through microtransactions.
Yeah, because they have those gambling tendencies, or those pressure, like, oh no, your energy meter is down, you want to keep playing, don't you? Come on.
And of course, kids, because like we said before, probably look around next time you're in Christmas walking around and you see parents or your own, if you have kids yourselves. I'm not blaming you for doing this. It's just something parents do. It's like, our parents did it with television, and we're doing it to our kids now, which is with mobiles. Mobile phone. Oh, you want to do something? Okay, here, play Bejeweled, whatever, for like 10 minutes while mommy's chopping, daddy is
Oh
looking
yeah,
at.
I see it all the time. Kids in the shopping in the grocery cart just on there watching either YouTube or playing some mobile game.
And so pressing on a button and playing a very colorful, free to play, monster driven game with skeletons and demons and fire and all that. That seems pretty cool. You just gotta press, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, this is like we talked about last week. This seems to be a pattern of things. And that's another thing about that article that Young reported is that the way it was described, I found it very interesting, was that in Activision side particularly, games are reaching a plateau. They're not collapsing yet. We're not having actual losses, but they reach basically the limit to what they think they can get, or they're reaching certain plateaus, right? And that is driving away the, or at least raising questions among the investors. And of course, if the investors start selling their stock, then the company loses money. So now reducing cost on the side of Blizzard means that more money stays on the coffers of Blizzard than Activision can then use to pad their own earnings or their coffers in case they have to weather the loss in stock. And not only that, and this I think is going to be a running theme throughout this podcast, is that perception drives sales and performance. If people believe you're great, if when I think it's when you're winning, you win more when you're winning, and you lose more when you're losing, right? So perception is that. So if the perception is you're not doing great, then people are like, well, you're done. We're out of here, right? And not only with investors, but also with players as well, right? Oh, that game is not it used to be popular, but not so popular anymore. We don't have to really play it, that sort of thing. And the thing about it is, it kind of sounds like the video game version of a recession. Because how you define a recession? You define a recession not necessarily as an economy that's actually losing money, although that's part of a recession, eventually a deep recession. But usually when you see recession is the loss of growth. So even a stable economy can be considered to be in recession. And one of the things that's been we discussed in the program, if you watch other people, they've been talking about this a lot, Jim Sterling, other folks have been talking about this, that one of the things that has happened in the last couple of years has been explosive growth in the industry, by at least by a factor of 10. So people were making 2 billion, now they're making 20 billion or 30 billion, right? So a factor of 10, 15. And there's an expectation that every single title, every other title is going to be explosive. It's going to be a big release. We talked about another game that's going to come next year for EA and BioWare, which is Anthem, right? And how really Anthem, the future of BioWare does not depend on Anthem. After EA took a really a hard punch to the face with the last Battlefront game, and another now with Battlefield 5. Which already dropped price on the game, having released about a week ago, 2 weeks.
I think officially, it's been in beta for a while, and then they pushed back the date, and I think it did release like a week or two ago.
So, I mean, yes, I know people have said this, and we're going to be talking more about this, how it's a holiday, so there's price drops. Yeah, but you don't drop price on hot games. I've seen games retain their prices, plateau in the prices, even with some reductions for years.
Skyrim
is still
Skyrim was $60 for a long time. I never saw that game drop down, and now I think if you walk into a store right now, you'll still see Skyrim for $60. It's just that it's now like PlayStation 4 Game of the Year has all the DLCs edition.
Yeah. So
it's still $60.
So these news is not good news for at least in the short term for Blizzard, right? And they're also here's the thing, and this is where you again, like I said this last week, and I'm gonna say it again, we're getting into the land of predictions. This could all be temporary. This could just be a bump in the road. But as we said many times before, the current business model has many fracture points. And so that's the thing. And talking about fracture points, now we're going to get into Fallout 76. Because Fallout 76, I think, it used to be, what was it? Oh, God, I forgot the title of the game. Something Sky. And stars. Anyway,
Oh, Starfield.
no, not Starfield. No, the other game that came from the Sony. That was supposed to be exploratory. You go to planets and explore. And it was supposed to be
Oh, No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. Yeah, it has no stars in it. Actually, it had very little stars in it originally. That was a problem. That used to be the poster child for things you shouldn't do in the video game industry. But now it's Fallout 76, a game that came out. Even the beta was severely broken, and yes, I know Bethesda has a tradition of making broken games, but now people, I think, are tired of that. No NPCs to speak of, so when you go around, just robots and holotapes. To the point that, and this is people saying, "Oh, how this is cute." Other players are playing the role of NPCs for existing players. So against the people, and this is actually not something new. It's happening all the way back to at least Ultima Online, but that game allowed you to become a blacksmith, right, or become a shopkeeper, and it kind of became an NPC. But that was your thing. This game literally is, there are no NPCs other than robots, and of course monsters, and so people are just standing around like, oh, you can talk to me, I'll tell you what to do, because I did this part, and people are like, oh, this is so cute. It's like, yeah, that's like when you hear a story about somebody, I don't know, buying their car that they had to sell to pay medical bills, right? It's like, oh, that's so heartwarming. No, that's a horror story, because nobody should have to sell their car or their home to pay for their medical bills, right? Jeez. Jeez Louise, it's just. And then the bugs that never end. And on top of that, the business model, predicated on the fact that selling games at $60 is too low. The $199 version of the game was supposed to come with a lot of goodies, including a power armor helmet in a duffel bag.
A canvas duffel bag.
Canvas duffel bag, right? Let me repeat this: a $200 plus tax if you paid for the you order it somewhere. That's tax on it. Should have come with a duffel, a canvas duffel bag and all the goodies, right? And by the way, many of these versions don't even include the disc for the game. So you get the casing, but not the disc. You get a paper thing, I think, with a code. I don't even think it has a code on it. The code is somewhere else. So doing all that, and well, now people discovered that it comes basically in a plastic wrapping. The helmet. And you get the helmet in the plastic wrapping thing.
Yeah, you get a cheap plastic nylon duffel bag for the.
I don't think it is even a duffel bag. The pictures I seen is just like a plastic bag. Let me check, because that's.
It's like it's something like a dollar store that's trying to look like military cheap.
Yeah.
Bag.
Let me see. Because okay, here we go. Yeah, it's basically a very cheap bag that looks like a knockoff of a a real sturdy bag. Like this is
the grocery, those dollar grocery store reusable bags that you find at the checkout counter look sturdier than that thing.
Yeah, that's the link from it, and I'm gonna read from the one of the Twitter one of the people complained because they paid $200 for and included that, and the first Twitter response was the following. The Fallout 76 $200 collector's edition comes with a nylon bag set of a canvas bag. Okay, the bag shown in the media was a prototype and was too expensive to make. We aren't planning on doing anything about it. That was one of the first responses. You're paying $200. If I were to go to the store right now and ask for one of those bags, I think you have to get me one of the most expensive bags that are around $200. Right? So, and that's in a store, right? With sales tax.
Yeah, let's see.
And they look much better than actually even the one on in the media. Then they said, well, yes, we admit that we made a mistake. Well, we're not going to send you back, but we're going to give you 500 atom points
Which is
in
like
game.
$5.
It's like $5 so you can spend on microtransactions. And to quote one of the friends of the program, Jim Sterling, he basically said in his video, you can go watch it on YouTube, that is in fact designed to get people hooked on the microtransactions because, I got these. It's a common tactic that you get 5 points of something and you want more because you're getting more stuff in the store and blah 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 blah. It's not even refund. And remember when it was said by the video game industry that one of the reasons why microtransactions is not gambling is because you cannot take the things that you're buying with microtransactions in the real world. Or now we have a quote unquote real object that has value in the game, about $5 worth in game for virtual goods. So I guess the reverse is true.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, there's the pin right there. Bing. Yeah.
So, an heavy duty 28 by 14 inch duffel canvas bag on Amazon, it runs about $9.50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I was looking at. I'm like, oh, how much could it cost? So
somebody made a comparison in Tumblr. You gotta love Tumblr sometimes. Between the price of Duke Nukem Forever Balls of Steel Edition, $100, $112.03 adjusted for inflation. It has the game. It has a bunch of stuff. It has dice. It has a statue, like a bust of Duke Nukem. It looks pretty nice for crappy game. And what you get with the Fallout 76 is a map, a couple of figures, toy soldiers, and the plastic bag. I mean, the nylon bag, I think you get the helmet, of course, but you don't even. I guess I should get the entire suit for that matter. But it's just. And that's not the only thing. Also, there have been already a lawsuit. At least one.
Like a firm is looking to maybe get clients for a class action lawsuit
against Fallout 70, against Bethesda under this, and of course that means.
Well, I think on that, and then there's also the one where essentially, hey, have you tried to refund your game and they won't refund it because this is a way too buggy and unplayable game? Like, call us.
Yeah, that's not gonna fly in places like Australia, who already went down hard on Steam. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they took out of the Steam.
And that's exactly why a lot of people are starting to put their conspiracy hats on and kind of like, is that why you didn't want this game on Steam? Because this game would have been refunded hard. Steam, I think, would have looked at this and be like, yeah, here you go. You get your money back.
Yeah, because they have to, right? It's just, and I think and finally, of course, we have the news, and I think we can now transition to the theme of the day, of the week, which we're sort of dancing around, is that also Fallout 76, which is a brand new game, it's on a month out, and it came as a big release for November.
Just like 2 weeks ago, maybe?
2 weeks ago, again. Now had a price drop. It went from around $60 to about $35.
Yep.
On their own store, by the way. Again, one of the reasons why you have your own store is that you want, although technically speaking, you can do the same thing. You can set your own prices on Steam. But remember, you have to give a commission to Steam when you sell anything through them. So any price drops, in a sense, you kind of have to talk with them. But when you have your store, you set on your prices, right? And we have to unpack this because this has multiple levels. First and foremost, going back to the example of the $200, $199 special edition of one of many, the idea of the $60 game is, of course, a myth. Because with microtransactions and DLC and season passes and all these things, even if you pay $60, there's a good chance you're going to end up paying more along the way. Fair enough, depending on what it is and what you get. But they really want you to spend more money upfront. And of course, we talked about the more money you spend upfront because of the sunk cost fallacy, the more likely you're going to keep spending money. Because once you spend money, it's like, oh, this better be worth it, so I'm going to spend more money to make sure that it's keep being worth something. These are the two games, and this one all the examples as well recently of games. I think the latest, the Lara Croft game, the last Lara Croft game also had a sharp drop, price drop.
Mhm.
Of games having that big games. Battlefield 5 was described by many reviewers as just being another Battlefield 5 game.
Yeah.
Not great.
Okay.
It's okay, right? Remember that term about plateauing sales and plateauing profits. When I think I'm going to coin I might just coin we are in a gaming recession. That might be a thing. I'm probably gonna make a video about that because it's an interesting concept. I always say that and then I don't, but yeah, there you go. Anyway, we are hitting a gaming recession of sorts, perhaps. Maybe too early to say or to tell, but these price drops are troubling. Now, I heard some of the defenses like, well, it's there's a fall sales and winter sales and that, yeah. But here's the thing. The reason why you drop your prices is very simple. You want to get sales because people are not buying your game at the price that you first offered to them. Particularly if like Fallout 76 is supposed to be a game as service. Because remember, it's all about engagement. What you want is people playing that game, and they have to buy the game in order to play it. So it's what's called a lead loss, right? You're willing to take a hit on the sale of the product because people will eventually play the game and will make up the losses on microtransactions and the like, and get more people. And even if you're not the one spending the money, you become the minnows for the dolphins and the otters and the buffaloes and the whales and the medieval dragons or whatever, right? Whatever species of creature is spending a lot of money in your game, or they're people, of course, but they're classified as at least non-mythological monsters. And you need your names. You need those concurrent users. You need your active install bases. You need all those fanciful terms for people having their butts in front of their TVs and or computer screens and playing your game. But I think it's just the first thing. First of all, it's an act of desperation. Let's be honest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it happens to one game, fine. But again, we're starting to see a trend. It's happening to very big titles very quickly, right? It reminds me of all those games back in the MMO days who went, "Oh, we're gonna be subscription based." Maybe not. We're gonna go free to play, but they're not willing to go free to play yet. I mean, it's this last couple of weeks in November, which is supposed to be the biggest, season, the starting of the season of gaming season. We're just seeing bad news after bad news after bad news, or at least not so great news as expected.
Yeah, you got Lara Croft, Black Ops 4 only made $500 million.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, for Black Friday, that was like 15% off. But that game was like out for like a month. And you got Fallout 76. You also got a price drop for Battlefield 5. How much of a price drop was that for the holiday? For
check.
A game that just came out like a week or two ago.
Mm-hmm. Then
Battlefield
5 price drop. Go ahead, yeah.
And then like the other one I noticed that I haven't seen anyone talk for like Black Friday, Starfield, or not Starfield, Starlink, this Ubisoft game that has like it's sort of like an augmented reality wannabe thing where you play as a little spaceship, and if you need different weapons, you take this toy spaceship and you switch out the like little accessories, and it reflects in the game, and then you can fight
Like amiibos.
Yeah, essentially like a little amiibo thing. That the starting base one is $75, and I saw it on sale for like $35. That's $40 off. And especially like the Switch ones, Nintendo products don't drop. Like they tend not to drop in price at all. I didn't see like a single copy of Bayonetta being advertised for cheaper than $60. But Bayonetta a 1 and 2 combo, like that, we would have jumped all over that. But no, Starfield with the really sad looking Star Fox character, and like, and maybe like some of the like kind of, I think I saw Rabbids Battle Kingdom kind of a small price drop, but that's been out for
a
year.
Yeah,
and like, but yeah, for the most part, Nintendo products don't go on sale unless they're really crappy shovelware games.
Here's the news. I guess I was half right when I said 50%. We were talking about this before the podcast began. This is from Newsweek of all places, not VG24, not PC Gamer, or gaming, anything like that. This is Battlefield 5's price drop, sales at Target and Best Buy. Battlefield 5 may be a recent release, but if you act fast, you're able to buy it at a sharp discount. Best Buy and Target both have sales right now, and both copies of Battlefield 5 going for as low as $30.
Oh,
that is in fact
that is 30% off. Or maybe 50% off.
50%. It's $40. It was $40 on Best Buy, $39.99 for the standard edition on PS4, PC, and Xbox. The price was even lower in Target, which is $30. Right, so we're probably talking about not even something driven by the by EA, but by the retailers. Now, the bulk of sales right now are estimated to be digital and not physical. But the fact that these big stores, because again, even if you're 5% or 10% of the market is physical retail, I think you're always going to have some kind of physical presence. We talked about this before, because you want to be able to both have you want to flood the market in every sense. You want people to have eyeballs on your on your game. So even if nobody stops in Best Buy and buys your game, they buy it digitally. If they go to Best Buy to buy a dongle or something, right? They see the game. Oh yeah, Battlefield 5, it's out, right? And maybe they pick up the box and go like, "Whoa, it's $30? Really?" But that just came out like a week ago, and you talk to the guy who's working or the gal who's working it's like, "Hey, is this for real? Is this like $30?" Like, yeah. Did you guess this? Yeah, we got them last week. Yeah. You're like, damn, right? You want those eyeballs on the product, but then if the stores, if Target and Best Buy are dropping prices that deep, that quickly, $20 off, $20 off on the standard version for Best Buy and 50% off for Target. At the very beginning, we're not even in December yet, so we're not even hit peak Christmas season. Houston, we have a problem. And with Fallout, that's on the retail side, and then Fallout 76 can't be blamed on retail, so it has to be Bethesda themselves who are dropping the price. Yeah.
I know it dropped in price everywhere too. Like in stores too, we're dropping it to $40, $35. Amazon had it for $35.
And it's also across all platforms. Let me read you again the paragraph about Best Buy. First off, Best Buy Battlefield is counted $39.99 for standard edition on PS4, PC, and Xbox One. Sorry. Oops.
Mucho hemos luchado para dejar que se nos
Sorry
caiga
about
el
that.
vuelo.
That wasn't supposed to come in. That's an audio thing that came out. So if you heard that, I apologize. So yeah, we have that problem right now. Uh, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Um, let me close that in because that's and the Fallout 76 drop price. This is from PC Gamer. It's $35, and it's a second price drop, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can buy from Amazon for $34.99, which is not you know, it's that kind of drop probably doesn't come from Amazon. Amazon really doesn't care. They're not known for dropping prices, you know, because they sell so much stuff, you know, that they don't any one particular product they're not gonna really care, even one such as Battlefield or Fallout. That has to be driven by Bethesda. Bethesda probably were like, yeah, you guys should adjust that price a little bit because we're not selling as much as we think we are. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So what, like, and I was just thinking about this the last week. It's just like, well, if all these, you know, if they need this high price point, like, oh no, $60, games are too expensive to make, and but you guys are slashing prices because you can't sell or you're desperate to move all this product. What does that mean then? Do you guys need the money or not, or are you guys is this a coming, like, I guess, another video game crash?
Well, again, we have to go back to the model, right? We have to go to the hype, which gets you your pre-orders, right? Which gets the ball rolling. Because if you have high numbers of pre-orders, that's money in the bank, right? Already, and that means that that means that you can not only have that money in the bank, but you can go to the investor, goes like, hey, we're making a lot of money, and we can project how much money we can make when we actually release the game. But that not tells me that maybe the pre-orders. We never heard any news about pre-orders going bad. But one of the things that Bethesda did was release a beta. Bethesda, the same company who basically made a policy that they were not gonna release the game to reviewers until the game was released. They were not gonna give early copies to reviewers, but they had a beta for this. So my guessing is that they wanted to gin up those sales. Oh, remember that glitch when you could not erase your copy of the beta unless you bought the game?
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't a glitch after all.
Well, the thing is too that in order to have access to the beta, you had to pre-order like a specific, not base copy, but I think you had to have like one of the higher tier ones, and then I think you could also give passes, like if I assume it's just for PC, but if you can have like you get like 3 other like beta passes to your friends so they can play too.
And rope them in so they get hooked, they get engaged. It's all about the engagement. Hype is about creating engagement as early as possible. Remember, we already said this. The more people spend up front, the more likely they're going to keep on spending and spending high. Your whales are the people who get in early, spend a lot of money early on, and will keep spending money because of the sunk cost fallacy. For them, it has more value to keep spending money because it justifies the money that they already spent. And of course, they're probably enjoying the product in the process, right? You hit the sales. Okay, you got sales. Now that's when the real numbers start coming up. Not because of the overall sales, which are important, of course. Usually that money is supposed to essentially pay for the game as it's made, and everything else is supposed to be bank, mostly, except for the cost of maintaining the game. But like we said, it's total sales, which gives you a number of active total downloads. Active downloads will get you the number, which is, and these numbers are smaller. Each one is even by 1%, it's smaller than the other one. Active install base, like people who actually install the game and activate it. People who actually play the game, active users, and particularly with games like Fallout 76, daily concurring player base, which is the real money number that lets you determine and project how many people are going to be the minnows, the whales, the dolphins, and everything else. That's the real population. People who come in and are fully engaged and play on a day-to-day basis or nearly so. if your pre-orders were not great and your beta left a bad impression, people actually paid more for it. You said this, and then your sales were not great. You have to discount because now you have to essentially you're doubling down of getting as many people in their butts in front of those screens to play your game, hoping that they will ignore all the problems with the game and be just engaged enough to say play NPCs for the missing NPCs in your game, go to forums and comment sections and defend your game and saying people are just complaining about stuff that they're enjoying the game, and spend money. And when in doubt, if you make a mistake about selling the wrong bag because you couldn't afford to ship the right bag, you give them microtransaction currency so that they spend on microtransactions and again get them hooked as well. The problem is it, and of course the underlying problem is that games like Final Fantasy VI are these bigger, and literally the map in West Virginia is supposed to be the biggest map Bethesda has ever created. It's literally a much bigger game than one before, at least virtually speaking, as well as overall data. Right? These patches, I think, the patch, the biggest patch for latest Call of Duty was at least as I think twice as much as the original game.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you basically got in a fancy installer the first time around, which these games become more and more complex, more expensive. There's more pressure on the developers, the people who are making the game. They can't really deliver a game complete, so they do their best, but it comes out buggy. And the industry has been surfing on the especially specifically Bethesda. There's something you have to call Bethesda on the patching culture of release now, we might fix it later, and its cousin, okay, let the mods get a crack at this. And now we're seeing lower. We're seeing news about lower than pre-order numbers. We're seeing sales plateau. We're seeing these price drops. I think the next piece of news is going to see where this is going is whether or not the microtransactions are really holding up. And we already seen that with Battlefront 2, by the way. There was a huge backlash.
Yeah, and Angry Joe released his video this week on it, and he was complaining. It's like $18 for a shade of purple for your power armor. Like, really? Like $18 for blue, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's ridiculous. And he did a follow-up video, and he was mentioning that like one of the positives of the game is the perk system that you get like little booster cards and stuff. But like, that's the thing. It's like, so this seems like it was designed at one point to be a microtransaction to get more of these boots, like these booster packs. But it seems like after the backlash of Battlefield Front, like of Battlefield, Star Wars Battlefield, that like Battlefront.
Yeah,
they they're all the same now.
Yeah, basically.
They it seems like they took it out, or at least they like, oh no, you can't buy those because tying progression to microtransactions is bad.
Yeah,
now.
and
yeah, so now it's like, well, if this game does go free to play, are they gonna tie that back in?
Maybe, but
yeah,
it's not supposed to be an MMO. Free to play games are only for, and again, talk about Diablo Immortal, how that was received for the PC crowd. When we talked about this earlier, perception drives a lot of the stuff. When you're winning, everybody wants to win with you. When you're losing, everybody leaves you behind, right? Success breeds success, failure breeds failure. And if you go free to play on a game that technically is not an MMO, it's not a mobile game, and yes, it's a multiplayer game, it's not a massive multiplayer game, that I think is going to be a bigger hit, right? It's like, well, wait a minute, this is not an MMO. Why are you doing this? Because Bethesda already has an MMO. It's called The Elder Scrolls Online. And that game sort of floundered. It's still out there, still floundering. But people really don't talk about it much. Their card game that went with it was supposed to be great and didn't sell that well overall. I think Magic the Gathering, the new version of Magic the Gathering, is selling like like hotcakes, but you know, not Bethesda's game. Um, and that's the thing. It's like I think the next shoe to drop is when we start hearing about whether or not we're seeing slowdowns on DLC sales and microtransactions. Not simply the fact that people are trying to regulate them, which is another, you're creating all this engagement, so you have this microtransaction driven economy, especially with loot crates and loot boxes. Not only do you have a possibly a series of legal attacks on the loot boxes, which makes them unappealing, you also have many games that not only have one type of microtransactions, but they have multiple layers of microtransactions. They have cards, they have points, they have, cosmetics, skins, cosmetics, and they have multiple currencies, energy bonuses, all that. And the thing is that you can say that one set of microtransactions doesn't affect how you make the game. But the more you have to put this stuff, and we've seen that we have to be massive changes in games now to rebalance them when you take out the microtransactions, right? We saw that with the
Shadow Mordor,
Shadow War, and we saw it with Battlefront 2. I made this a mistake. So we're already seeing some of those news. If we keep seeing more of those news, I think that's going to be the real take on whether or not we are in a gaming recession. Because ultimately, I think it's something I'll be talking about is like anything else, and this includes, microtransactions. There's peaks and waves in video games. There's trends. And you have trends, people who start the trend, people who take the crest of the wave and hit it big with the trend, and then you have the wave coming down. At a time when everybody's moving toward or not everybody, but a lot of the big companies, the big AAA companies, or is Microsoft quad A companies, are moving into video games as service model, right? Essentially the MMO light, the MMOs. Disguised MMO style business model. If at this moment you have to have price drops and people and the the whole thing is plateauing, right, hitting a crescendo that you have to see in the top of the wave when it comes to earnings, what's going to happen to these new games, right? Where are they going to go? If we're seeing some of the biggest games out there not reaching the kind of targets they're supposed to be reaching, if the market is saturated and people are getting tired of this? Because I think also one of the things that best follower 73 is that Bethesda has skated on
name
and reputation and reputation for a very long time. People like myself have been willing to excuse a lot of crap that Bethesda's put up with, like the infamous ending for Fallout 3. The idea that my biggest gripe, two of them. First of all, it slammed the door on the sandbox, which a lot of people don't seem to mind, but I did mind. And the fact that the actual fix for the game they sold to you, sold it to you on a DLC. So the fix was in a DLC. Horse armor, paid for mods, buggy games. You have a combination of factors, and one of the things, and I said this before, I said the biggest weakness is that people are willing to wait, right? If people are not engaged, it's almost anti-engagement or disengagement. That people get tired of these things and they put up a wall saying, I don't care for this anymore. And the more you hype to me, the reaction is to recoil. And we've seen this before. We've seen this counter hype or anti-hype movement. And if it keeps building up speed, all of a sudden, all that money that you're spending is not giving you anything. You're actually throwing good money after bad. And there's a final factor, and we're talking about the Activision, is what they're going to do when they have problems. The first reaction is to double down, to spend more money, which means the games become riskier, which means the games are more complex to make, but at the same time they're playing it safe with known open world models, FPS models, etc., because they don't want to risk doing something radical that people might not like and it crashes and burns. I think it's not even seeing it's like seeing a slow moving train crash. right? It doesn't seem like any one thing of it is disastrous, but the momentum of all of this, sorry, just keeps piling on until finally, you have a derailment, right? And it's like, oh, we should have seen that coming, and we did. But again, making predictions of when it can happen. I don't think it's going to be as bad as the crash like it happened in 82, 83. But yeah, I think I'm like I said, I'm really liking the term "the Great Video Game Recession" because that's what it sounds to me like.
You think this is probably going to lead to more, studios closing? And I mean, like, studios as in like extra little satellite studios for these big
Oh
triple A
yeah,
studios.
yeah. That's another thing to watch for because those happen all the time. But this year, of course, we talked about how many studios close. Um, yeah, I think another reaction for companies like Activision is to deep into their partner pockets. Blizzard try to get control of their finances, like having their CFO so they can get control of their finances. Closing studios, right? Oh, we went into a big buying binge. We don't need these studios anymore. Can you make a mobile game for us? Okay, so you don't have to make a mobile for us. That other little studio can make a mobile game for us, right? Because we've seen a lot of closings, but we also seen that in the last 5 years or so, companies like Microsoft and others have been in a big spending binge, consolidating a lot of little studios under their own banner, kind of like banks becoming bigger by swallowing out smaller banks, right? Um, but if they're not making bank, again, the first thing you got to do is start cutting your losses, and that means firing people and dissolving or merging. Or, I mean, look what happened to again to Bioware or Andromeda. Boop,
Yep.
boop. Well, and again, that game wasn't a financial failure. Andromeda wasn't a failure; it just wasn't the big success built upon the Mass Effect um, franchise that they expected, especially again because of microtransactions.
And then and with Fallout 76, I think they also mentioned there was like 5 studios involved in it too. It's like they had like almost every single like studio under ZeniMax just like thrown at it too. And they only managed to cobble together this mess.
Yeah, it feels like they were trying to jump into the bandwagon and the wheel broke for them. And they fell out of the car, right? They jump in the bandwagon, it's like, no, 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 wait, and the bandwagon is still going, but they fell on their ass in the mud back there. Question is, how many more people are gonna fall on their ass, and how hard it's gonna be felt every time somebody falls off the bandwagon.
And I don't know. That's just it just kind of reminds me of I linked you that story last week, and we didn't bring it up last week. But it was something I heard on NPR where it was somebody from West Virginia. I assume it has to be like the travel advisory for West Virginia. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh wow, like Fallout 76, like our governor declared like November 16th, like the launch date, like reclamation day, like in the video game, and it's so neato that like this really fantastic recreation in this video game world of West Virginia, and how nice. It's like, do you play video games? No, I don't. I know nothing about video games, but I think it's gee willikers fun and interesting. I'm like, wow, it was just kind of painful listening to somebody not know about video games. I mean, it's neat to get their outside perspective of it, but it's like, wow, it's like this game is going to be it. It was worse than we were expecting. We already knew it was going to be bad. It's been worse. It just makes me wonder, like, what do those kind of people feel? What does the state of West Virginia feel now that this game is out and it's complete garbage?
Yeah, and I think we might start, and the fact that we're seeing, like I said, we saw that news on Newsweek is also indicative, because when you start getting these news, whether it's looking at loot boxes or price drops, etc., from outlets that don't necessarily cover video games or barely do so, that's when you start seeing sort of the ripple effects, right? it sees the impact. The expectations of these games are so big that Newsweek saw fit to cover them, but also cover the fact that, hey, these games are not doing very well. Because I don't care what your excuse is. If your game is out 2 weeks ago or a month ago, or even 4 or 5 months ago, and you have to do an average of between 25 to 50% off on that game, yeah, there's something going on here. But again, the problem with predictions, it's the predictions are always fraught with danger, and we also are facing with an industry that keeps everything close to the vest. A lot of NDAs.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have. We only get news about how much money's being made. Like, say, I don't know, GTA 5 making, how many hundreds of millions of dollars a year, because they're making hundreds of millions of dollars a year. If they were not making that kind of money, they don't say anything. We get the news, the all the news that they think they sought to print, but not more than that. And
it goes back to the thing you said about if when you're winning, you're winning.
Yeah.
You're losing, you keep losing.
Yeah. I mean, it's so prediction time. I don't know. I think. Okay. Here's the thing. We're gonna get some news, and then November, December is gonna happen. Keep your eyes on March, because March is when all those games that got delayed because for whatever reason they couldn't release them. They weren't really sure they could release them.
Anthem.
Yeah, that's when you're gonna see part two. The other shoe drop, if there is in fact another shoe to drop here, right? And yes, it may sound like a conspiracy theory kind of thing, but I think it's time for people to start connecting the dots. Right, because it seems to be trends across the industry. Just like microtransactions become a trend across the industry, just like games as service has become a trend across the industry, you all have other trends. And, like I say in Skyrim, watch the skies, traveler. Because it may come down on all of us. So I think that's going to be the final note for today. So, Chapelman, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chapelmon pretty much everywhere. I am Chapelmon_Aragon on Twitch and Twitter, and I am Chapelmon on YouTube. Actually, I'm hoping today I get to release my review, I guess, or I kind of talk about the Pound Technology HD link cable for the PlayStation 2, which is supposed to, speaking about like retro gaming and stuff, upscale PlayStation 2 to be able to be compatible with the newer televisions and whatnot. Yeah.
We'll see what.
I kind of have a mixed feeling on it.
Let's see how that works out. And of course, you can find me here at Lessons Learned 1. Of course, we are an affiliate of Twitch, so any cheers, follows, chats, and of course, subs are always welcome. And we also have a Discord, which we'll find the link down below, or you can ask on chat and we can link you up. And of course, you can find us on YouTube under Lessons Learned, where we usually post the VODs of this podcast and some other things. We're in the final end run of Shadowrun Hong Kong, which we're playing tomorrow. After that, I think we're gonna do a little bit of Mass Effect and then see what Christmas brings for all of us. So thank you all for coming, and as always, we'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Oh.